Hello, I'm Jennifer and welcome to my library. I am a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. Let's get a full shot of this outfit. I went into that extra detail. I was going to put long underwear under this. My jeans are too damn tight. That's why the knees are blown out. It's a 90s reading video. Hello. We are here today to read books that were published in 1993. 1993 is the year of my birth, and therefore it is of significance to me personally. It is also the date in which The Virgin Suicides was published. You may recall from a handful of videos towards the end of 2023 that I was reading and loving The Virgin Suicides, and that I expected to read it by the end of the year. The end of the year came and went, and I have not yet finished reading this book. So this is one of the top pieces of reading that I need to get done. Then I thought, super fun, let's make it a vlog. Then I saw a video that Books and Lala posted the same day that I decided to do this and started filming the vlog for this. Books and Lala posted a video which was reading books from 1990 until I get a 5-star, and she mentions that the next video that she's gonna do is books from 1993. I already had a plan for this video in my notebook and I already started it today, and now I feel like it looks like I'm copying her, which to some degree the idea is inspired by her videos, especially her video where she reads from a specific year in the 1980s. I really liked that idea. I got a little bit too much in my head about that, I think, because it's still gonna be fun. But for sure she's reading Parable of the Sower, which is a book that I also read for this. We have a little boy who keeps crisscrossing my lap as well. I feel like we've got a very on-trend mug as well. I think first I'm gonna talk about The Virgin Suicides because this was the book that I started reading first. I had seen the movie first, and I've seen the movie a few times. I quite liked it when I was a younger person. I should also mention Jeffrey Eugenides. I also started reading Middlesex by the same author, and I DNF'd it. It was really gross, and I might go back to it, but that was my first taste of reading from this author. I don't know, it just felt icky. This book also feels icky, but it feels icky in a way that I can really relate to. There are these lines and descriptions about teenage femininity, kind of the grossness that comes from that age and being a girl. The activities of girls and the kind of grossness of girls. I don't know, I just really enjoyed that element of this book. I'll say I enjoyed the first section quite a bit more. What the fuck? Guys, dude, somebody got so fucking mad that they bit their book. Dude, I feel like these are little kid teeth. I enjoyed the first half of this book quite a lot. I loved the descriptions of the girls, and they were more interacting with society at that point, so there was a lot more like real life stuff to go off of. In the latter half of the book, they're a lot more isolated, and so most of what is being discussed, because it's from the perspective of these teen boys, is from an outsider's perspective, and it's a lot of like guessing and like piecing together the clues. I will let my past self, right after I finished reading this book, continue on with my review. I am so cold right now. Why am I here? Why are we all here? I am here to talk to you about The Virgin Suicides. I finally finished reading this book. I read it last night. I don't know what I was even doing. I was putting it off for so long. I don't really know how to feel about it. The language used The word choice, the descriptions were so beautiful and unique and haunting. They had such a vibe. I can give you some quotes. Spiky bacteria lodged in the auger of the girls' throats. In the morning, a soft oral thrush had sprouted over their tonsils. The girls felt sluggish. At the window, the world's light seemed dimmed. And descriptions like this. Instead of a heady atmosphere of feminine chaos, we found the house to be a tidy, dry-looking place that smelled faintly of stale popcorn. This has that hyper-specific language that really gets the vibe across that some literary fiction is able to achieve, and I loved that about it. I loved the way that the words were put together. Create such a feeling, such a visceral feeling. There are some aspects of this story that it is like a haze. It's like a dream. So there's this collective group of boys that this is basically being told from. It's being told from these boys. They are the narrator, and it's their research and their view and what they could see and piece together of these girls' lives. And so that gives it this weird, detached, obsessive, removed, but so involved. The overall plot, we're really looking at this group of sisters. One of their sisters kills herself. The way that things unravel and unfold when the sisters get more and more isolated is like incomprehensible. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the point of view, because none of the story is told from the girls and their own experience and what they're feeling. So we're only hearing it from this group of boys who are trying to piece together what happened. It is just so wholly incomprehensible for an outsider to try to piece that together. I do think it was quite good. I haven't yet rated it. I'm not sure that I'm going to rate it, and I really don't know how I feel about it. I am happy that I read it, and I am also very pleased to have experienced such beautiful language. Jeffrey Eugenides does a wonderful job of using the senses, especially I think like smell and taste. That's what I thought about this book. Man, I was really considering doing costume changes. I wanted to do like a Blade inspired one where I wear like all leather. I can't bend. I don't know why I put on the pants. You can't even see the pants. Where are the pants, guys? So I know this might be like a little bit later, like 1997. I'm still gonna wear it because, I mean, when else am I going to be perfectly honest? The next book that I have to discuss is The Geography of Nowhere. This is a nonfiction book published in 1993 about the current state in the United States of city planning, the influence of cars and suburbs. This was a wonderful, wonderful book. This starts in a very historical perspective, goes through why things are the way that they are in the United States as compared to other places, and historically key moments which caused what we have now. And then we get to the current day, which was the 90s. I'm so fucking rad. This does go into a bit of a scathing review of our current city planning and kind of the spinelessness that we have going on in our systems as to why we have such shit places to live. Now I've just gotten distracted by feeling my thighs. Overall, I thought this book was very, very good. I am losing feeling in my calves. Will let my previous self talk about this book. I was really impacted by it, and this is one that I would definitely recommend to many, many people. I think it is critical, and I don't think like a ton has changed. There are a lot of people who are aware of how much nicer walkable cities are and how nice it is to have mixed use buildings. I haven't seen like a big shift in the way that we're planning out our towns. So I've been reading The Geography of Nowhere by James Howard Kunstler. This is a book that goes in so deep into the American suburb history. I have absolutely loved this history lesson. The mindset and the early examples of city planning and the early laws and the early individualism key components of American society that led us to this path. It has been so informative and so to a researched depth that I really appreciate it. And it also makes me feel a little bit more sane in analyzing this hellscape that we've made for ourselves and deconstructing why we've made it for ourselves. And it makes me feel more heard in my internal thoughts about considering the structures of our American society and the physical layouts of our towns and our lack of public spaces. There was something that was so interesting to me, and I do wish I had a physical copy of this book so that I could highlight some key quotes. There was this idea of American society removing the responsibility of property to serve the community. And early property law and constitutional law really highlighted the individual's right to their property and their ability to do whatever they want with it. And with that comes a detachment from any responsibility to society and any idea of having a public space that isn't going to make you money. Having lived in an old Italian city before and seeing how many spaces there are that are just for the public and how comfortable you feel being in this place, out and about, walking around, it's not something that you can feel in the United States, in our cities. We don't cater to human society or the ability for people to do something without money as the primary motivation. The other thing I found just so illuminating was the idea that suburbs, I think my picture of suburbs are usually 1950s suburb, probably because I live in one, but this idea of the suburbs starting before automobiles and having really genuinely these kind of idyllic, park-like, very designed, thoughtful, nature-driven, people-driven places where you don't have to be in a stinky, crowded, unsafe urban environment, which is what those cities were at that time. You could detach yourself, be in your beautiful community, your idyllic community. You could take the train into work, get your work done, go back home. That idea of the suburb, I guess the main drawback is its elitism, and it is rooted in classism. Only certain people would be able to afford that more ideal lifestyle. But the lifestyle itself sounds so much more beautiful than what the suburb is today. So I just thought that was so interesting. Also, if you can hear this idling car, I'm so sorry. Hello! I wanted to give a quick update on my 1993 reading vlog. I have been reading Geography to Nowhere. He's kind of sassy. I was reading part of this morning. He has some really, really excellent points about our culture towards the public space and how we don't really think that we need to provide anything to the public space, like any cohesiveness or anything to offer from any private space. I get what he's saying, but he had a particular beef with like painted plywood yard art. And like he talks about like a woman leaning over with like her bloomers showing and she's tending to a flower bed, or like a little boy who's like peeing on like the side of the house, like as painted plywood cutouts. And he's like tearing in to how our houses are a joke and we treat them like a joke and we don't respect the public space. I think he's being a little bit over the top and hyperbolic at this point with that kind of stuff. I just had to laugh because so much of this is really serious. It shapes our lives. But I love yard art, and I don't really have any problems with having a little silly image in front of your house. Like, it's not the most disrespectful thing, and I don't really think it's that serious. But so far, that's like the only silly little hiccup I've had with this piece. It has been really, really well written, really well researched, super educational. It points out things that I'm so used to that it's hard for me to even notice them at this point. I love the discussions into the zoning, the codes, the current state of public planning and city planning. It also makes me think about where I live. There was something about like basically yuppies or like successful, youthful people who you really want to stay and be like the people for the community. Like, they have the money, they should be in the community. That there's such a fleeting sell your house, get into a better neighborhood view of things, that you don't really have people who settle down and make their place of living their home. And I feel like I've really tried to make this home my home and provide to the community and plant fruit trees and stuff like that. So it's making me feel good about my own choices when, you know, I could easily think like, well, I might sell this house in a few years, so I'm not going to do anything to make it an important place, you know? Oh, we have a pet. I barely see her because she's so dark. Hi, sweetie. So now we're doing like a bit of a Friends look. I don't know, not my favorite. So because I don't really like this outfit, I'm gonna pick a book that I didn't super enjoy, and that is Black Swans by Eve Babitz. If I were doing really well on this YouTube channel, like if I could monetize it or whatever, I might actually purchase this book to hold it and to give you guys the satisfaction of a lady holding a book that she read. But that's not the case. If you would like for it to be the case, please like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends. I think I'm more chaotic than usual today. So Black Swans by Eve Babitz was a super short collection of nonfiction kind of essay stories by a woman who was really ingrained in the LA scene. I guess she had some associations with Joan Didion, but she was like the less serious one, more frivolous, more girly. I will say, I thought her writing was pretty good. I was engaged in her stories. Sometimes I thought her interpretation of life was just too far from my own, that I couldn't really get the value from her work. She was very interested in appearances and relationships and some of the more superficial things in life. It wasn't quite the collection for me, but I could understand why people would enjoy it. And there was really just one key moment for me where I thought, this is a genuine problem, and she was quite out of touch. I have started reading Black Swans by Eve Babitz. I had never heard of this. Something that I read when I looked at the summary must have sparked my interest. And it seems that they're more like memoir-y short stories and maybe slightly into the essay territory. I don't really know anything about Eve Babitz as a person, but evidently she was involved in the LA area, and her writing in this book centers around that scene. So far, I quite like the way she uses her words. It has also highlighted to me the time period in which we're reading from, being 1993, how really prevalent AIDS was at that time. I also finished reading this book today, The Hot Zone, which is mostly about the Ebola virus and related viruses. And this does also talk quite a bit about HIV and AIDS. It is a book about viruses, so it made sense to me. This book is from 1994, but reading Eve Babitz's work really highlights how impactful and transforming the AIDS epidemic was at that time. I really have some mixed feelings on this. I thought it was a perfectly serviceable short essay collection. I didn't know anything about Eve Babitz before this, but I guess she was at least somewhat a well-known person at the time. She was a bit of a party girl, very SoCal, very LA. And a lot of her work is about living in LA and about that scene. So she writes about, you know, being a woman at that era. One of my absolute biggest problems with this book is a specific story. I don't physically own the book. I read it as an audiobook, and I don't think I want to actually buy the book. There's a section in the book where she is talking about African women's, I don't even know how to describe it, like cultural practices of African women with regards to their genitals. One element is the female circumcision of the clitoris. The other element of it is, she says something about like shoving herbs up their vaginas so that they stay dry, so that it's really like rough and painful. Personally, I just really didn't like the phrasing, and I just felt like there was a supreme lack of tact in her phrasing on the subject. She was using it to make a point about like beauty standards, kind of like, okay, women in LA might be wearing high heels and might be putting on makeup and might be doing certain things for the men around them, but at least we don't dry out our pussies with herbs. Like, it was so, in my opinion, it really missed the mark. And that was, I think, the lowest point of the book. The book was fine. It was an okay book, but that element of the book was pretty awful, and I really didn't enjoy it at all. And it definitely marred my opinion of the book as a whole. I have one more book to talk about, one more outfit change. I'm gonna try my best to look like Dana Scully. One moment. So Dana Scully is one of my favorite characters of all time. I definitely didn't do her justice. Her hair is always way prettier than this, and I don't think she would wear this purple turtleneck with this navy color. I feel like she would be more color coordinated. Also, my pants, I really tried. These are my most Dana pants that I own, but she would never wear this color combination. Favorite character pairs with my favorite book that I experienced from 1993, and that is The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This book was such a good book that I bought the book. Same with this one, actually. I read both of these through my library. This was such a good book. And the really cool thing is that part of it's set in 2024. Quite a lot of it is also set in 2026, however, so you may want to hold off a couple years if you're like really into it. So our main character is Lauren. She is a teenage girl. She's living in this walled suburb because we're in a version of the world that is just slightly worse than it is currently. So it's more dangerous, there's more people who don't have homes, there is generally more like dangerous drug use with new innovative drugs, and there is the start of these like new company towns. So things are pretty dire. The cost of water is extremely expensive. This is set in the LA area. So this teen girl, she decides, I gotta learn about some things. She also develops her own religious system in a certain way. She has her own ways of thinking, and she writes down her thoughts about like what is God and stuff like that. This is the first book in a series, and I flew through this. I read this in about 2 days and just flew through it. I was so into it. I was really captured by this story. This was one of those like perfect stories for me kind of thing. It's about things that I'm really interested in, and it was executed quite well. So I really, really loved this. I highly recommend it. I also finished reading The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I just finished reading that just a few moments ago. This was just such a book for me. It's definitely reads as the beginning of a series, and it is a series. And I do think I want to continue on with it. I haven't been that much of a series reader recently, but I think I would like to, because I just really like the messages that are given in this story. And it's also such a realistic, well fleshed out story. I think the only con would be the late part of this book, like middle end to end, seemed to me to drag out a little bit, because it is kind of like the situation of like The Road, where they're walking along a freeway and they're trying to get to someplace, and for me that can drag a little bit, even though I loved The Road. I loved The Road so much. There were also mentions of like race relations. The neighborhood that she was in was a lot of African American and Hispanic people, and there was concerns about, you know, people if they saw mixed race couples, that would be dangerous. I thought that was handled quite well. I really, really enjoyed it. I did rate it 5 stars. Yeah, I just thought it was excellent. Now we're gonna go on a walk. Oh yeah, do you know now? You understand we're going on a walkie. Okay, goodbye. That's my update. So those were the 4 books that I read for this 1993 reading experience. I got 2 5-star reads with these 2. These were so good, so excellent. And I got 1 3-star with Black Swans. And then this one I left unrated because I have a lot of uncertainty about this book. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. And let me know if you've read any books that were published in 1993. What are some of your recommendations from 1993 that I missed? I think Girl Interrupted was also published in 1993, which I feel like got a similar movie treatment as The Virgin Suicides. What else did I miss? What else is out there that you would think I would like, considering the books that I liked today? And I'll talk to you again soon.